In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Humans of Hope, Inspiring Stories, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope Worldwide, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find the strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome, Michelle Lee. Michelle is an incredible woman. She's so resilient. She has such a remarkable story, and she was the first woman ever to row the Atlantic Ocean or any ocean, first woman in Australia to do that solo. And what's more remarkable about this story is that the day that she was due to fly out to embark on her solo voyage, she had the news that her father had passed away. To be able to do what she did for all those many days on her own in itself was a mind-blowing journey. But to have to set out and do that and battle grief at the same time all alone on an ocean is just something that I actually still can't fathom. And I've lost my own parents, and I know the heartache in that in itself. But Michelle has such an amazing story of courage, resilience and hope. Lovely to have you with us today, Michelle.
Thanks, Kerry.
Really looking forward to hearing your story.
Yeah, and I think probably the most common question I get asked is why. So we might get that out of the way. And it comes with a warning. I issue a warning, and that is be careful what you read. So I read a book called Rowing the Atlantic Ocean, and it just plagued me so consistently and so persistently for 2 whole years that I just thought one day, May 2016, I rang my friend. I said, guess what I'm going to do? And she said, what? I said, I'm going to row across an ocean. She goes, hey, honey, how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know. I've just got to get me a boat. And I honestly thought it would be that easy, but it was, a 2-year journey. I was not a rower. I'm not elite, not an athlete, not an Olympian. I didn't have a boat. I had never put an oar in water before in my life. So when I say, I come from very humble beginnings, it's so true because, I was just seriously an average, ordinary chick running a little massage business and had this nagging, plaguing notion to row the ocean all because of a bloody book.
Books are powerful, aren't they?
They sure are, yeah. And it was a story of everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So it wasn't even like a really fairy tale, do this and everything's going to be fantastic. No, everything that could go wrong went wrong for Ross Savage, and her ability to overcome and triumph every single time is what I connected with, and that's what I wanted. And so I just thought, well, I have to go and copy and mimic what she did.
Was there something missing in your life that made you feel like you had to go and do this great thing?
The best way I can describe that is I'm happy with my life. I've got a good life. It's my Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It's very predictable. It's easy. It's cruisy. I know exactly what it looks like, who I'm going to see. I know exactly how much I'm going to earn. I'm not satisfied. I want more. So that's the best way I can describe it. And, I sort of think that it's that state of dissatisfaction where we are our most creative. So I always say to people, welcome dissatisfaction, because that's where it's going to provoke change. It's going to provoke you to want to go and do something. And I always say to people, man, we can write our own rules. We don't have to stand in that queue and just get handed what is given. You can break free and you can go and write your own. So that's, probably a really strong message that I try to impart is that we're here. Yes, you got to do your Monday, Friday, 9 to 5, but man, want more. It's okay.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. And there's a lot of fear attached with wanting to strive for greater things too, isn't there? There's a lot of risk that often holds people back.
Yeah, totally. And that actually, I turned that around. So fear can be very debilitating. It can stop you in your tracks, and it can, make you sort of quash your dreams. But I said to myself, I don't want to die wondering. So I sort of turned the fear on its head the other way. And I feared, what if I got to the end of my life and I sat there asking, what if I did that, or wish I did that? So, I sort of look at fear the other way now, and I run towards it, because it's on the other side of it where the magic is. That's where, it all happens. That's where I feel alive. You know what I mean? Monday to Friday, I'm going through the motions, man. I'm ticking the boxes. It's easy.
Yeah.
But it's on that side of the other side of fear where I actually feel alive.
I remember when I started Stories of Hope, and I'd always suffered a really big fear of public humiliation. And the fear of not achieving my dreams became so much greater than the fear of going for it and having a go. And obviously that's the point that you got to as well. Different scenario, different situation. But it is so wonderful on the other side of it, isn't it? And often the fear of the thing itself is just so much greater than how it actually turns out.
Oh, totally. And I always say, you know what, go to worst case scenario, right? Just take yourself there and allow yourself to picture that. Really, it's not life-threatening, and it's not the end of the world. So what, you might fall over, who cares? Like, give it a crack. That's where I'm at in life now. And I just think, too many people, they don't even give it a crack because, like you said, you're afraid of public humiliation. But then your desire to achieve that bigger picture was greater. So, that's what we need to seize. It's like getting the bull by the horns and tackling it. And just give it your best red hot shot, man. And you'll drag people in with you.
I know. It's contagious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I read a book about a guy that actually died. He drowned in a lake and came back to life. And the essence of the book was that so many people are just living to die. But we should be dying to live. Like excitement, can't wait to get out there and live. But so many people are just living their life, just dwindling away, not doing anything, not achieving their dreams. And it was just such a powerful message, which is what we're really talking about today, because you put yourself right in the midst of a very life-threatening situation, some may say.
Well, you're dealing with the powers of Mother Nature out there, and the forces of, and so many things that are out of your control. There were so many things that you couldn't train for, and I couldn't mimic or mock. I never knew what a 4, 8 or 10 meter sea looks like. I never got the opportunity before I got out there in my brand new boat that had never been put through her paces. So for both of us, my boat was brand new, and it was really a world of first. It was her maiden voyage, it was my maiden voyage. So we were learning about each other as we go. And, as the waves were getting bigger and bigger, I'm like realizing that she handles so well. And this is what she's built for. She's built to surf the waves. So in the end, I'm like, have you got anything else? Come on, Mother Nature, give me more. But that's the days where I actually clocked up some really great miles. So I relied on the ocean and the wind to help push me west. So on those days, when it was a deadpan, flat, safe, calm day, they were my hardest. I had no assistance from the sea. And, I was lucky if I did 17 miles in 24 hours as opposed to 60 miles in 24 hours when I had Mother Nature kicking up a little bit of a storm for me.
And can you tell us about the day that you flew out?
So, we play pictures in our head and we sort of know what it's going to look like, or we think we know what it's going to look like. I had all my friends coming over. We were going to have a few drinks at home, and then we were going to head off in a couple of carloads to the airport. I was going to check all my bags in and then go and sit down. We were going to have a drink at the airport together, and I was going to say goodbye, see you on the other side. But it was nothing like that. So again, this is life, man. It constantly throws curveballs at us. And it was at 8 a.m. in the morning that I was due to fly out that I got a phone call from my brother saying, Dad has to go and have emergency surgery. He said, Michelle, the surgeons are not giving us any false hope. They don't know that he's going to pull through. And then it was by 11 a.m. I got a call to say he didn't make it. So, there I am thinking, we're all going to kick back and have a few drinks. And the day just turned into, all I wanted to do was get to the airport. I ended up just having 2 people drop me off at the airport and my roommate and my next door neighbor, they dropped me off and I just said, go, leave me and go, So it was a dimension to my row that I didn't anticipate. I mean, even the first 2 weeks of the start line where you're there and you're getting your boat scrutinized and ready to sort of head out, it was all a big blur to me because, I was going through disbelief, grief, you name it, and then feeling guilty as well that I didn't stay for the funeral and I left my brother and my sister to deal with all of that sort of stuff. So there was, lots of conflicting emotions, I guess. And just sitting on the plane, I remember just feeling completely numb. And I also want to say, I didn't come from the Brady Bunch, right? We weren't the Brady Bunch family, and there was a lot of unspoken words, unfinished words that with my dad, that I had vowed to myself when I'm finished this row, I'm going to drive up there. They live, up in Queensland. They're 7 hours from me. I said to myself, I'm going to drive, take my boat and show my dad what I did. And I never got the chance. So for me, I sort of now really do ask you to consider, all the water under the bridge, just let it go, man. Go and patch things up. Go and, life's too short, So, and that's something I have to live with now is, and I did my farewell out there in the middle of the ocean and I had some really deep, dark days that were just full of such overwhelm and despair that I had to, try and find a way out. And I sort of took comfort in this pair of little birds that would come and visit me. And I was convinced that they were the same birds every single day. And one of them was Ray. One of them was my dad. Initially I was really distressed and it just brought me to tears. And then by the end of my row, I was like calling him, come on, Ray, how are you, mate? Get here, mate. And I'd be chatting to him as if it was my dad. I would be having a full-on conversation. Or when things weren't going well, I would call, come on, Ray, I need you today. Come to me and hang around me for a little bit, Yeah, it was nice. And, I look back on all the footage of all that and it just takes me right back to that moment. Wow. But this is life, we get thrown the curveballs and it's, what are you going to do? You're going to fall in a heap or are you going to, find a way to navigate under, over, around the obstacle, the challenge? And it's all of these things that get thrown at us. These are our opportunity, I believe, for building your resilience. If we live in a really calm, level, flat sea, what do they say? They say a calm sea never makes a great sailor. Need the adversity in order to challenge our resilience, and to build it. It's like a muscle. It needs a stimulus thrown at it to get stronger and to develop.
Absolutely. And can you tell us about day 46? It was your hardest day, wasn't it?
Yeah, in my diary, it's noted as worst day ever. It was a day, again, just lots of conflicting emotions. There was things starting to go wrong on my boat. My foot steering fell apart. I had conflicting winds, wave, which was really messy it was a really confused sea state. I had a toothache and an earache. And it just felt like everything was going wrong. It felt like everything just now was compiling on top of each other. And it was probably, I'd say, my meltdown day. It's a day where I remember sitting there thinking, if a boat came past me and said, all right, sweetheart, come on, get off, we'll take you in now, I honestly don't know what I would have done in that moment. It was, full of despair and overwhelm. And I don't know, I think I even felt sort of a bit hopeless, but then you got to pull yourself out and you just got, I said to myself, there ain't no boat that's going to just come by, Michelle. So, it sort of made me develop little tools to take out of that little toolkit. And it was that day that gratitude came to me, and I thought, you know what, this is not even about me. This row is now about everybody who helped me get to the start line. So I said to myself, this is the smallest token of appreciation that I can do to give back, is to get my bum on that seat, quit your bitching, and you row, get to the finish line. So that was a sort of talk that was going on in my head. And it was then that I realized the power of gratitude. Right there and then I was like, oh my God, it was like, it just completely changed my vibration. I just got on that seat, and every time I'm on the oars, I'm thinking, this has got nothing to do with me. It sort of took me out of the picture and brought back everybody who gave up and sacrificed something to help get me there to achieve my dream. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's incredible. And all of a sudden at that moment too, you wouldn't have felt like you're alone. You're part of a greater, bigger team.
Totally.
Together with the team and with other people supporting us just makes the journey just so much more valuable and so much easier, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And, this whole row for me was, it's a solo row. Well, there's nothing solo about it. And initially it was about me being able to stand up and scream my independence and I don't need anybody. I can do everything on my own. And it was almost like it was a life lesson for me to learn that the power of inclusion and, having people in your life. And it taught me that, I had to ask so many people to do so many things for me. So it put me in a really uncomfortable position. But I also think that it's a lesson that I had to learn, that there is more to life when you include and you have your little team and you bring people in, it's like, yeah. Couldn't you have learned that an easier way, Michelle?
Well, it is something that you have to learn, isn't it? Because a lot of people are afraid of losing control of a situation. And that part of that risk is letting other people in.
Mm.
But when you do, and I've always been a bit of a solo person prior to this Stories of Hope, but letting everyone in and having people be part of and helping inspire other people. And people just want to be able to contribute in life, don't they? And by us giving them that opportunity, we're helping change their life as well.
Totally. And that it taught me a lot about humanity and human kindness, and how people, they genuinely really do want to help you. If they can, they will.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the feel-good factor of being able to help someone. You walk away feeling great. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a really good vibration that I think lifts the receiver, it lifts the giver. You know what I mean? We all benefit from it.
Yeah. And the power of thought. So, I'm a counsellor and I talk about this all the time, but the reframing of the story determines the difference, doesn't it, between failure and success, or making it or not making it, or slumping or coming out the other side. And I just love it how you reframed your thinking at your lowest point and told yourself a different story.
Yeah, totally. The stories that we tell ourselves, or the language that we speak, and the way we speak to ourselves, it's, many times out there, it was almost like I forgot how to row, and I had to coach myself. And what really happened was I was just overthinking it.
Yeah.
I just was overthinking, overanalyzing. And then when I started saying to myself, okay, imagine you've got to teach someone how to row. So I started just saying all the cues, calling the cues for rowing and how you set yourself up, go for the catch, go for the drive. And I was like, oh, man, just strip it back to basics.
Yeah. Sometimes overthinking paralyzes us, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yes. And then disillusionment sets in. But tell us about your happiest day on the sea, or your most wonderful moment, if you do have one.
Yeah, it's the sunrises, the sunsets, the phosphorescence, the explosion of colour off your oars if you were rowing in moonlight. Oh my God, unbelievable! And you can't capture that on a normal camera. So my GoPro could never capture it. It's just up here. I had 3 full moons. They were just so magnificent. And one of the full moons, there was not a breath of wind. The water was just deadpan flat. It was deathly silent. Oh, that's magic. These are the things that, I'll recall on a crappy day or whatever. I'll just go, hang on. And I just try and take myself back there. And because I'm really connected with it at the time, I can now recall that feeling of, and it lifts my crappy day. It changes my crappy day. So the life, the sea life, the whales and the dolphins, the little fish that fascinated me, this tiny little pilot fish with little stripes. He looks like he should be in a little aquarium on your kitchen top, at home. And there he was. He followed me the whole way. He was always off my left oar and just playing in the swell. So, and I felt like I had company, or I felt like they were people. I actually felt that, these visits were like guardian angels just coming and watching over me and just giving me that little bit of a boost. And, the day I saw 2 hours worth of whales just coming through, they were on a mission. They were just heading on a very distinct path and very direct, they were on a mission. And that kept me going for days. I'd just be rowing and I'd just be going, I can't believe I saw that. Oh my God, how lucky am I? So all those things, there's so many moments that I was in awe of, absolutely. And I feel like even an uninterrupted rainbow, from where it started to where it finished, completely uninterrupted by anything. Those moments for me, they're amazing. They're priceless. I cannot put a price on them.
And our mind can't differentiate between imagination and reality. And that's the beautiful thing about memories, because when we remember those wonderful things, our body does exactly the same as it would if we were back there right in that moment at that time again.
Oh, yeah, and that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Once you know that, and you can recreate moments, you can manufacture. So, there's almost no reason to have, a bad mood. There's almost no reason, because if you can, and I know we can, because I've practiced it, and this is part of how I was one of my tools in my toolkit really, was to be able to use these little things to lift myself out of a really bad moment. So for me, even in life now, like, lessons learned out there, I've brought them back to my everyday life, and I just can't feel sad. I just can't. Because I just remember all these other moments where the feeling was so good and I can recall it and bring it back. And then I always ask myself 2 questions, and that is it the end of the world or is it life-threatening? Always ask. And you know what? It never is. So things are never as bad as they seem. They really aren't. Find the beauty in what is around you, even if in the human kindness, someone making you a cup of tea. Like, there's so much beauty in that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you've learnt heaps about gratitude, and that's something that's a really big tool for me also. It's really life-changing, isn't it? It's really for pulling us out of the pit.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And you know what? There's so many ways to reinforce that as well. So for me, I made a gratitude cam. So I made about 70 individual gratitude cams where I just spent 1 to 2 minutes mentioning the individual for what they did. And then at night, I wrote it on a whiteboard. I took a whiteboard with me. And then so I wrote a sentence about them. So it was the last thing I saw at nighttime before I went to sleep. And then in the morning, I had to rub it off, because I used to use that whiteboard as my accountability board for all of my rowing ships so that I didn't slacken off. It was almost like I was answerable to the whiteboard. So I had to rub it off. And so it was the last thing I saw at night, and the first thing I saw in the morning was a statement of gratitude. So straight away, it just put me in a really good vibration.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's just such simple things that you can do every day, every single day. There's something to be grateful for.
Absolutely. And the ocean, for me, I'm terrified of the big water, to be honest with you. Had an experience where someone tried to drown me in a swimming pool when I was younger, and swimming out in the ocean is terrifying for me, but it's my go-to place. I live near the beach, and just staring at the ocean, looking at the sky, looking at the water, hearing the crashing of the waves, like it's the whole 5 senses are all into action all at once. And then just capturing those moments and bringing them home. Like you said, I love the ocean so much. So I can only imagine how many moments that you actually have to keep recalling for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's so therapeutic. And, while there were stressful moments out there and those little, unexpected mishaps with my boat and things like that, and, certain things weren't set up correctly, which I couldn't have known until I put her through her paces. It was the beauty of and the therapeutic value of the being on the water that I'm sure is also what helped get me through it as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Can you take us through a typical day? What time you woke up, what you ate,
Yeah.
But none of us can imagine to know unless we were in that situation. So.
Yeah. Well, I decided to treat it like a job. And I said to myself, at home, I get up at 5 every day. I go to training. My day starts at 5 every day. And I go to bed 10, definitely by 10:30, I am in bed.
Okay.
So I thought, I'm just going to treat this like a normal job. And I was out on deck at 5 a.m. every day. And I would then start with my breakfast. So for me, cooking facilities was just boiling water. I had a jet boil. And I lived on predominantly freeze-dried meals. So they're light, they don't take up much space, and they just need water to hydrate, mix it up, wait 5 minutes, and then eat the mush from the bag. So I would eat 4 of those a day, and they were 1,000 calories each. So I ate 4,000 calories worth of main meals. And then I also substituted that with another 3,000 calories. So I was eating 7,000 calories a day. And the other 3,000 was things like high calorie, high carbohydrate energy bars, muesli bars, protein powder, all that sort of stuff. So you're basically just a machine, really. It's just eat, sleep, row, repeat, pretty much. And I would row in 3-hour shifts. I would set a timer so that I didn't slacken off, because it's very easy to kid yourself. I learned that early on. It was really easy to fool myself. In the first 7 days, I'd say, oh, yeah, I think I had a pretty good day. And my miles weren't reflecting that. What I should have been pulling wasn't reflecting it in my 24-hour averages. And that's when I really had to go, hang on a minute, I think this boat needs discipline. So that's when I pulled out the whiteboard and the timer. And I used to row to the time. And you saw it that very first day. The next 24 hours, my land support said, Michelle, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. And I said, yeah, I just needed discipline on this boat, man. I pulled out the whiteboard. So and then I would basically put my head down at 10:30. My last rowing shift was between 8 p.m. and 10:30. I'd finish with 2.5 hours. And I always boiled myself an extra pot of water so that at the end of that rowing shift, I looked forward to a hot cup of Earl Grey with a pudding. And then I would just sit in my cabin, have my Earl Grey, tuck into my pudding with the hatch open, just looking out and just being rocked. Sometimes you're being thrown, whatever. And then it was lights out, and I would sleep for 1 hour maximum. So between 10:30 p.m. and 5 a.m., I slept for an hour at a time and got out on deck every hour on the hour to have a look, just peruse the horizon, make sure there's no shipping. I would look at my chart plotter. I would check my autopilot. So I used to set an autopilot of a night time so that it held me on a course. It would just hold my rudder on a course. And essentially, though, you're just doing whatever Mother Nature does. So if she's blowing you north, bad luck, that is where you're going, even though you want to go west. So it teaches you a lot about acceptance over resistance. I can't change that. I had to just go with the flow and accept that that's what it is today. So, and then, every hour on the hour, I would get up, have a look, make sure everything's happy. And I did that for 68 days.
So in life, and something that's been a big strategy for me and that I talk to my clients about, is having the importance of having something to look forward to. And I just noticed the way you lit up when you talked about your Earl Grey tea. And that's just a little thing to everyone, isn't it? Oh, having a cup of tea. But to you, that was your really something to look forward to at the end of the day.
Totally. And I used to use, so I would set myself, my reward system was food. So I had locker number 6. And I used to say to myself, if you put in a really good rowing shift, you're allowed to go to locker number 6. Now that had like the jars of Nutella, jars of peanut butter, whole packets of Tim Tams and kilo slabs of fruitcake. So I used to that was my bargaining tool. And I used to say, okay, if you put in a fair income shift with no stuffing around, you can go to locker number 6 at the end of this shift. Not before, not during it, at the end of the shift. Doing little bargaining tools like that was, and reward was very motivating for me.
That's gold. Have you always been a very self-controlled person? Because to do all that and put all that in place,
I have learned over time. Yeah, I've learned over time that I thrive on discipline. I actually am better when I'm time poor, when I have, shitloads to do and not enough time to do it in. I perform better in life and I'm a better person. So for me, to embark on these, and to always have something in the background of my Monday to Friday 9 to 5 I'm actually a better version of myself. That's what I find. So yeah, the discipline, the regime, the regimen, it agrees with me. I thrive in it.
So I have two more questions before we finish. I wish I could talk to you all day. Did you have a specific light bulb moment out there?
Yes, I did. And it is that we are so much more capable than we think we are. So there I am on day 46, noted as worst day ever. I still had 22 days to go. I didn't know that, of course. On day 46, you don't know how many days you've got left because you don't know what's going to happen with Mother Nature. You don't know if your rudder's going to break. You don't know what challenges you're going to be faced with. I realized that, man, and I say it, when you think you got nothing left in the tank, you've got at least another 22 days. So it just proves to me how little we actually challenge ourselves, how we give up so easily, drop the ball, this is too hard, whatever. And how we avoid being uncomfortable. But man, when you're just that little bit uncomfortable, that's when you learn so much about yourself. It's when you realize that there's a whole lot more to life. There's a whole lot more to offer. There's so much more opportunity if you want it. So yeah, that's my big thing. I say it now, whenever you think you got nothing left, man, you got 22 days.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. Can you take us fast forward now to when you arrived and tell us about that day and that moment? And I'm imagining a lot of people that were supporting you were waiting.
I had one friend fly to this.
Because, of course, you're in another area.
So, yeah, Antigua's not easy to get to. It's
that's right.
It was 50 hours for her with connecting flights. It was a nightmare. And then when you get there, it's third world. You're dealing with third world, no street signs. And she arrived on her own, had to hire a car. She was staying out in the Bronx, she was
an amazing friend.
She was such a trooper. And they only decided to do that 1 week before I was due to come in. Because I wasn't going to come into anybody. No one was going to be at the finish line. And she was sitting here watching all the other people come across the finish line to hugs and all their family and friends. And she said, I can't let her row into nobody. Oh. So she got a bum on a plane. My neighbour gave her, a couple of $1,000 to say, just book the ticket and go. You've got to be there. So I rode into Claudie, thank God, because you're a bit broken. So you need someone to help put you back together a little bit. And you just want to be looked after, to be honest. And I didn't know that all that was going to be the case, Yeah. But the picture that I had of me rowing across the finish line, again, was nothing in reality. So I had this vision that I was going to have my hair all washed. I was going to have a nice shower before I rocked in. My legs were going to be shaved. I was going to look great and fresh. It was nothing like that. I rode for 19.
Like you were going to the Emmys or something like that.
God, and I had a little makeup bag in my cabin thinking I'll put a little bit of lippy on, a little bit of, as if. So in reality, there I am. I rode for 19 hours. I got up at 4 a.m. and I decided I'm not spending one more night on this boat. That's it. I'm done. I am getting in tonight before midnight. So it's 4 a.m. I scoffed porridge and I just made a shitload of meals and just had meals ready because I said to myself, I'm not even going to get off my seat today. I'm just going to stay on my seat, scoff, row, not have any scheduled breaks, just get in. And I had the wind against me, so it wasn't doing everything that it was meant to do. I was supposed to have a beautiful easterly blowing me west. Well, that didn't come. Anyway, and then as I was rowing in, I'm looking at my legs and I hadn't shaved them once in 68 days and I had one razor on board and I'm thinking, I can't do this to myself. So between rowing, I had a little lunchbox with some fresh water in it. And I'm like shaving my legs between taking some strokes, take another and then take them.
Just water. Just water, no shaving cream.
I know I had a little bit of soap, but
my goodness.
So yeah, and I didn't get to wash my hair, nothing like that happened, but it was just sheer relief. Totally.
Yeah.
When they said you can stop rowing now, you've crossed the line, it was sheer relief to feel safe again. And, I realized also on day 46 that this is a survival challenge. And I said to myself, this is bigger than running around my neighborhood naked. This is now survival. It's not a rowing race. It's all about surviving.
Yeah.
So relieved, joy,
And the journey since. So you've been in like nearly every media that you can imagine. Television.
5 minutes to fame, that's all it is. It's just, and then now everyone's like, Michelle, who? But look, it was all fun. It was all an experience that I'll certainly, get to an age in my rocking chair and I'll look back at this and go, geez, I'm glad I did that. I am so glad that I had the courage to get rid of that imposter syndrome, that you think you can row an ocean. I had to fight that little birdie over and over again. And it's so worth it. I say to anybody, just give it your best red hot shot. And you know what happens? I believe, when you are living true to your compass, true to your intentions and to your heart, doors just open. The amount of people, like that's a book in itself for me, the amount of people that have come from nowhere, I don't even know them from a bar of soap, that have extended themselves, and just the way paths and doors have opened. And I'm like, oh my God, my neighbor and I now, when stuff like this happens, we just look at each other and we just go, yeah, of course it will. Of course it does. What happens, And I believe it's when you do the focus, conscious intention and you're true to it, it happens. So don't worry how. It just will.
Yeah. So just be true to yourself. Live out what you think your purpose is. Things will happen.
And that is how your purpose finds you. I don't believe you find your purpose. It finds you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, look at you with what you've started, and look at what you are giving to people that you probably don't even know how many people you have touched and how many lives you have changed and given hope to. You know what I mean? And it's true, when we read the hardship stories or the challenges that other people go to, it does make you think, you know what? If they can do that, I can do this. It really does.
Yeah, that's such my heart's desire, is sending the messages out that I've got through this. The people that I have at Stories of Hope have got through this. If they can, if we can, you can.
Yeah.
And there is always hope.
Totally. It's beautiful.
Michelle, thank you so much for being with us today. I love you heaps. You're just one of the most remarkable women that I have ever met in my life. And I'm so grateful to our mate. I'll give him a big shout out.
Anton, yes.
Thank you so much, and wishing you your greatest days ever ahead.
Awesome, darling. It's been a pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Humans of Hope Inspiring Stories with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leave a rating and review on your podcast player. Thank you to Matthew Bliss for podcast production and consultation, and to Kintsugi Heroes for making this podcast possible. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find out where her next event is taking place. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode. And remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.